Alrighty, so apologies for the late delay for this news of the week episode. I was supposed to do it yesterday, but I just didn't have enough time after I came back home from ground hopping. But we're gonna jump straight away in terms of the first big news, and I'm pretty sure this has been a news that you guys been waiting for my reaction and my take in terms of just a landmark moment that happened on Friday, and not in a good way too, because MLS has officially announced that they will not have their team participate in the U.S. Open Cup for the first time in league history, and instead it will be MLS Next Pro team that's going to be taking place of those MLS team that's going to be participating in this year's edition of the U.S. Open Cup. Now, obviously, there's been a lot of negative reaction in terms of the news, and I'm not surprised whatsoever. In my opinion, I think this is a mistake that the league is making, deciding to not have MLS team participate in this competition and instead putting MLS Next Pro team. And I think instantly the reaction to this is also what I thought it was gonna be, and that of course is that instantly a lot of negative reaction have been targeting toward the Leeds Cup because heading into this season, obviously there's that big question about fixture congestion and how how MLS was going to potentially fix the amount of games that a lot of these teams are going to playing once again, just like last season. And it seems like MLS decided that the best way to do it is just not have their team participate in the U.S. Open Cup and maybe just solely focus more on the Leeds Cup. And obviously, I know, as I mentioned before, how the Leeds Cup is definitely a fun competition. I definitely enjoyed watching the Leeds Cup last year. But I definitely did not expect the league to really focus on that. And I will say that there are definitely some legitimate reason why the league decided to maybe focus more on the Leagues Cup compared to the US Open Cup. The Leagues Cup is where the profit is. And this is also where you have the debate about tradition versus profit. The tradition, of course, is definitely the US Open Cup. I mean, this competition has been around since 1912. It's a competition that has been a long time in the making, and that it should be something that MLS clearly should not be disrespecting compared to a Leeds Cup that literally just created one seasons ago. And that the argument for those Leeds Cup and the argument toward the profit is, well, I can understand why they're leaning toward the Leeds Cup because that's where the profit is, and that you could even argue that if the Leeds Cup didn't invent it, Apple TV probably would not have that landmark TV deal that they have with MLS. That being said, though, going back to what I said about the whole fixture congestion, this is where I definitely will make an argument of, well, I understand that yes, you have the Leeds Cup that is happening along with teams participating in the US Open Cup and league play, and that easily can means that teams will be playing 40 or even 50 plus game as what we saw LAFC did this season. But this is why I asked, why didn't they decide to expand the roster or at least make a big tweak in terms of the roster change? When we saw the news a couple of days ago, and I even made a video about this, about some of the roster changes, it was definitely not as much as I thought in fact, I thought it was kind of almost a bare minimum that they did, and that I was kind of stunned the fact that well, the fourth DP route didn't eventually come to fruition because Don Gabber had basically shot that down in the state of address. I thought they were going to make some dramatic change in terms of increase the amount of TAM that each team can have, or maybe in one of the things that I've said that the league needs to do for a long time to battle fixture congestion. Why not expand the roster spot? Like, why not expand the amount of players that they can use, and that if you expanded the roster spot and also maybe increase the salary cap by more, you would not have this issue in terms of fixture congestion. Like we see in a lot of these European team have to participate in multiple competition, and the reason why a lot of these teams are able to do so is because they have the roster space to do so. So the fact that it's almost like a no-brainer of it's just a very simple way of just them increase the roster spot and increase the salary cap itself. That could easily just fix that issue. They didn't even need to worry about having the U.S. Open Cup being a thing that the league might ask teams of going so that they can at least have fewer games to play. Now, I've also heard that a lot of people have said that the reason why maybe MLS Next Pro team is participating in the U.S. Open Cup is that this is basically a chance for them to play in a more competitive game, especially against a USL team. Which again, I get that argument too, but then it also kind of makes me wonder. Well, if that is the case, then maybe we shouldn't have created MLS Next Pro in the first place. Maybe those MLS Next Pro teams should have stayed in the USL Championship. Though again, I think you can also say that the whole reason why a lot of these MLS Next Pro team came from the USL Championship is the case because USL won no part in terms of what MLS doing. It feels like right now we're about to see a real battle between two league, and I would not be surprised in the future we could have a big discussion in terms of MLS versus USL because both of these leagues definitely do not like each other, and they're definitely heading into a bit of a battle because of that. But yeah, again, it's very sad to see that of course it is the case where MLS team is not going to be participating in this competition, and I'm definitely going to miss in terms of seeing USL Championship team take on MLS team because some of the best Sports Ops series episode that I've done involving US Open Cup are always between USL Championship team versus MLS team. Heck, this year probably the best Sports Ops series episode I've done this year was Monterey Bay versus LAFC because the atmosphere of this that's just something you cannot not replicate even in an MLS regular season game. And that I also do understand that there are that argument of well, I think the reason why MLS team decided to not participate in this competition is that fan interest in this isn't really that strong too. I mean, when you look at a lot of these games where MLS team is involved, especially against another MLS team in the U.S. Open Cup, there really isn't a lot of good attendance in terms of these games. And in fact, some of these MLS team doesn't even play in their main stadium for these U.S. Open Cup because they know that they're not gonna draw well, even if they're playing at their main stadium. This is where you can also make the case, and this is kind of what Taylor Twelman mentioned before. Well, why not just have a lower league team and especially USL Championship team face against MLS opponent at their home? Because one of the thing that the US Open Cup has really brought success is to a lot of these lower league team, and that I also think that another thing you can draw in conclusion in terms of this. MLS really wants to have a monopoly in U.S. soccer. MLS really wants to be that league where this is our league, this is our stamp of authority, and anyone else, we don't really care whatsoever. And I think that's something that it's kind of sad to see that is the case because as a person that loves the lower league, so ever, I'm kind of sad to see that of course is the case, and that's why maybe we're moving into a different direction in terms of not having these USL Championship team versus an MLS team. But still, again, overall, when you look at all of this, we'll see whether or not if this is going to be a foreseeable future. And also, it's going to be interesting to see how the U.S. Soccer Federation is going to respond to this because the reaction for the U.S. Soccer Federation hasn't been a strong one. They haven't really. I mean, they said that they weren't informed that MLS was not going to participate in this competition. Well, that's about it. They didn't really say anything else after that. So yeah, again, this is going to be interesting to see whether if this is, of course, going to be a one time thing, and also, going back to what I said about how this is a move clearly of MLS saying that we're focused mainly on the Leeds Cup. Well, right now, the Leeds Cup for this upcoming season I gotta say there could be a chance where fan interest might not be there because a lot of supporters have already said that they're pulling out their support in the Leeds Cup and even boycotting the Leeds Cup because of the way that this competition is clearly the sole blame in terms of ruining the U.S. Open Cup. And that, yeah, again, it will be interesting to see, whether or not maybe MLS might be me rethinking about this, or is this just going to be a foreseeable future? Because if this is a foreseeable future, it's sad to see what the direction the U.S. Open Cup is. The U.S. Open Cup, I don't think it's gonna die forever. I mean, for a competition that's 100 years old, there's no way that's gonna die. But just the way that the whole point of this competition that just kind of acts as the main cup competition in this to turn into to how things have gone like this. Yeah, it's really sad to see. But anyway, after spending almost 10 minutes talking about this, because again, this has been something that everybody's been talking about lately. Now let's get to some of the signings and also some of the news regarding head coaches, because we also saw another hiring in terms of the last couple of days with the New York Red Bulls naming Sancho Schwartz as their new head coach. Now this is not a surprise because we have said before in the News of the Week episode they were pretty close in terms of getting him as their new head coach, and that of course is the case. So it'll be also interesting to see how he does too, because when you look at European head coach in this league, they haven't really had a lot of success, and especially with the way that this Red Bulls team, they are desperate to trying to get themselves back to where they were a couple of years ago, being a team that not only make the playoffs. I mean, making the playoffs has been the thing that the Red Bulls have done. After all, they have the longest active playoff streak, but actually have some success in the playoffs. Yeah, that's been something the Red Bulls have been desperately needed. Well, another thing that the Red Bulls desperately needed is that they needed some more attacking talent, and one of those players that they got might actually provide that, and that of course is them signing RB Leipzig winger Emil Frostberg as a designated player. Now, this is, of course, another news that I've mentioned it before, and it was kind of inevitable that they were going to announce that, and that indeed they have made it official that he have signed with the New York Red Bulls. And I even said before, even though I know Frostberg is not as good as he was a couple of years ago with RB Leipzig and maybe kind of past his prime a little bit, he's still a guy that I think will definitely inject a huge life in terms of this lifeless Red Bulls attack last season. I mean, the Red Bulls had one of the worst attack last season. They desperately needed a guy in any position to be that spark on the attack end, to be that distributor, and I think Emil Forsberg will definitely provide that to this New York Red Bulls team. Now, going back to head coaches hiring, so CF Montreal is in the process of getting a new head coach, and they're actually interviewing with Charlotte FC assistant head coach Madhu Kong. Now, this is a guy that he actually won the Canadian Premier League with Pacific FC, and he's also a guy that has coached with North Texas SC, and that is a team that is very well known in terms of the lower leagues, and especially in the MLS Next Pro, because North Texas SC is FC Dallas affiliate team, and this is where a lot of those talented players from the Dallas Academy plays that team. And it feels like maybe CF Montreal is going through a youth movement now, and this is not a surprise considering Montreal has been able to produce some really good young talent in recent years, and that they're hoping getting a head coach that has that experience in the youth movement will definitely help their causes in terms of it. But yeah, we'll see whether or not if indeed they're gonna name him as the permanent head coach. And again, if that of course is the case, I think he's the first head coach in MLS that is hired by a Canadian Premier League team, because I don't think there's been any CPL head coach that has made the jump into MLS to this day. Now, moving on, and now talking about some of the signings that has happened regards to end of the season waiver and stage one of the re-entry draft, because both of that was available just a couple of days ago. So DC United have claimed Ethan Double from the end of season waiver list just a couple of days ago. Now, Ethan Double he's one of those many players that came from the Sounders Academy that really didn't get too much time with the Seattle Sounders, mainly because the Sounders are just so stacked to a point where they don't really give their youngster and give their academy product a lot of minutes, besides maybe putting them with Tacoma Defiance. But I think this is definitely going to be a good signing for DC. It's will be interesting to see whether this is a depth signing or maybe this is a chance for Ethan Double to maybe get some more minutes. I do think that he has some talent. He's a very raw kind of player, and that I don't think him staying with the Seattle Sounders is gonna be able to continue to develop his career, because we've seen not a lot of Sounders players that have come from the academy that has been able to jump into the first team and really establish himself. I mean, there's been some, but it's been very few. and between. And we'll see whether with him now going to a new team, whether if not he can continue to develop to a player that, like I said, I think he could be one of the uh fullback in the league with the raw talent that he has. Speaking of the Seattle Sounders, they have selected John Bell in stage one of the reentry draft. So the thing about John Bell is that I think he got selected in the expansion draft last season, and he really didn't get any chance to play with St. Louis City because St. Louis City they were pretty deep in terms of their back line. Well, at least as the season goes along, they were a little bit short in the beginning, but they really beefed it up as the season goes along. And John Bell was way down the pecking order in terms of the depth chart, so it's no surprise that they decided to let him go. But the Seattle Sounders said, well, we need some depth in terms of the defensive end, and that John Bell is definitely a guy that could be a perfect depth piece. I'm kind of disappointed that New England let go of him a couple of years ago because he actually was a regular starter for the New England Revolution, and he was a guy that I thought had some potential to be a rock solid defender in this league. But unfortunately, they decided to let him go. I was hoping maybe his time with St. Louis would get him some more minutes, but just never able to get more minutes. And him going to the Sounders, I mean, I don't know if that's also a right team for him to get some minutes too, because the Sounders already have a pretty decent back line with Jackson Reagan and Yamar there. But still, no, this is definitely just for depth reason, and I think that's a good depth piece the Seattle Sounders have picked up. And then Austin FC have decided to sign Hodder O'Brien from stage one of the reentry draft. I was very surprised to see FC Dallas let go of Hodder O'Brien because I think last season Hodder O'Brien probably had his best season for FC Dallas and really started to break through. So I'm kind of surprised that they decided to let him go because of it. But Austin FC won't mind. They picked up the scrap. I mean, they're known to pick up scraps in terms of Texas team. And that it seems like that this is another example of it, and he'll definitely provide some presence in the wing. I mean, he's a very fast player. One of the things that I think Hunter O'Brien would definitely needs to work on is his finishing ability because his finishing ability has not been great. He's a guy that has a lot of pace, but his finishing and also final ball product is lacking a little bit. So yeah, we'll see whether or not if he's going to fix that. And also, you could say that maybe this could be a good replacement for Diego Fagundes that they decided to let him go in the last transfer window to the LA Galaxy. Speaking of wingers, Sporting KC have acquired Honduran forward Alnis Vargas. Now, I don't know much about this player other than the fact that I think this could be for some depth reason, and maybe he could be the guy that is going to be next in line after Johnny Russell potentially is going to be moving on from this team. Because from what I heard, he does have some good talent, and that again, for Sporting KC, it doesn't always help. It doesn't always not help to have more depth in terms of the winger position. And this, of course, is definitely going to help the case. Speaking of depth, the San Jose Earthquakes also added some more depth toward their forward group as they acquired Preston Judd in exchange for $200,000 or 200,000 K general allocation money to the LA Galaxy. So this is one of those rare kind of Galaxy and Quakes kind of move that is always kind of weird to see when the Quakes and the Galaxy decide to make trade with each other. But still, I think this is a good depth signing. I think at times you saw last season Preston Judd. You can see what he brings to the table. I mean, he was a stud in the USL Championship, and while he definitely didn't show that much of that goal scoring ability in MLS, and I don't blame him because making the jump from USL Championship to MLS is definitely a bigger jump than what some people might think. But yeah, I think this is still a good signing in a way where for the Quakes. I also feel like the reason why they decided to get Preston Judd is mainly after they decided to not extend the loan or even buy Matthew Hoppy permanently from I think it's Middlesbrough. That is, he's no longer with Schalke. Matthew Hoppy. That's kind of the club that made he made it his name in the world of soccer. But yeah, after they decided to not re-sign Matthew Hoppy, they decided that they need to have a replacement for him. And to me, I feel like if they're gonna get Preston Judd, I feel like they might as well just kept Matthew Hoppy or at least think negotiate with Middlesbrough, maybe extend the loan period because there were times where Matthew Hoppe definitely brought something to this Quakes attack, and yeah, I thought that they could have maybe think about renegotiate his loan deal, maybe extend his loan deal, but I guess maybe they just didn't quite get that done or aren't able to reach an agreement to that. So yeah, now they have a replacement in Preston Judd, and we'll see how he's going to do for the Quakes. I mean, there's no doubt that he's gonna still be a guy that's gonna be second or third in the depth chart, just like he was with the L Galaxy, because Jeremy Ebobisse is still gonna be the regular number 9 for this Quakes team. And then moving on in terms of the next couple of news involving contract extensions. So NYCFC have signed Matt Freese to a new contract extension, while the Seattle Sounders signed Alex Rodon to a new contract extension. Both of those contract extension is well deserved because for Matt Freese, for a while I was kind of surprised NYCFC decided to not make Matt Freese as their starting goalkeeper. They put Luis Barraza as their starting goalkeeper for a while, and then once Barraza kind of went down with an injury, Matt Freese basically took that job, and he never looked back. I mean, he become the regular starter for this NYCFC team, and this is also why we've seen we said before how, or I said before how when Matt Freese decided to come from the Union to NYCFC, this was going to be a time where he has a chance to show that yeah he could be a hot prospect goalkeeper in the future, maybe even in the U.S. men's national team radar, and I think he can still be the case because when he came into this to be the starting goalkeeper for this NYCFC team. He looked really solid, and again, well deserved to get a new contract extension. Same with Alex Rodon. I mean, there's no way you're gonna see the Brodons be separated in Seattle, and this is another example of that. After I think Christian Rodon also signed a contract extension not long ago. Now, moving on in terms of now talk about some transfer rumors. So, the Philadelphia Union, they are already said that they're not going to re-sign Kai Wagner, and that Kai Wagner, as I said, is a very hotly prospect in terms of the free agency market. Well, it seems like he is actually not going to be signed by an MLS team, and again, it's not a big surprise because he said that he wants to return his native country in Germany, but it seems like maybe that might not be the case because Red Star Belgrade is reported to look to try to acquire Union fullback Kai Wagner, and that I think this could be a good move for Kai Wagner. I mean, Red Star Belgrade is a team that regularly makes the Champions League and have produced some really good young talent in the past, but we'll see whether or not if Kai Wagner wants to do so because again his move in terms of his time after finishing his contract and finish his playing time with the Philadelphia Union is returning to his native country in Germany and maybe even playing in the Bundesliga again, but so far I haven't heard any offer from the Bundesliga, but instead, Red Star Belgrade is definitely a good team too. So we'll see if this move does complete. And what's also so sucks for the Union is that they're not going to get any transfer fee out of this. This is also why I feel like I understand that maybe Kyle Wagner wants a lot of money out of the Union if they decide to sign him to a contract extension, but for such a talented guy like Kai Wagner, this is going to be a little bit of a setback for the Union. The fact that they're unable to keep him on contract, and that if he does decide to sign with Red Star Belgrade, the Union is not going to get anything out of him because he, of course, is a free agent. Now speaking of free agent, there are also sources suggesting that PSV is interested in signing Atlanta United center back Miles Robinson. So Miles Robinson is another player that is out of contract with Atlanta and is a hotly touted free agent. But for a while, there was definitely talk that Miles Robinson could make his jump to Europe, and I think PSV is another team that could be a good team for Miles Robinson to join. The Eredivisie has always been a league that's known to produce some really good young talent, and that PSV is definitely one of those teams to do so. I mean, I know a lot of people have heard of Ajax as being the main team to produce some good young talent. PSV has also created some good talent too. I mean, Ricardo Pepi did play for the team for a bit, so we'll see whether or not if that's going to be the same case for Miles Robinson, who now that he's a regular U.S. men's national team player. I think his time of potentially making that move to Europe has come. It's kind of like right around the age that he's going to do so. So yeah, we'll see whether or not if this deal does complete. Now, the Columbus Crew, they're looking to acquire Derek Jones off of free agency, and I don't think that's a bad move too, because Derek Jones has played well during his time with Charlotte and Columbus. They all obviously want to have some depth in their midfield, and to get Derek Jones off of free agency will definitely help their depth chart in terms of the midfield position. And then the LA Galaxy is looking to sign Paraguayan winger Roman Sosa from Talleres. Now, I don't know much about this guy other than the fact that, anytime when you have a guy that comes down from South America, especially from Paraguay, usually you can say that it's going to be a very highly talented player that the LA Galaxy might be thinking about getting, and maybe they're still follow the formula that I've said many times with a lot of MLS team going down to South America looking for these young talent, develop them, and eventually sell them off for for a big amount of money, and we'll see whether this is going to be the case again. And then moving on in terms of now talk about news that is not related to signings and transfer rumor. So Calgary FC, they are going to play against Orlando City. And by the way, I forgot to mention the Concacaf Champions Cup draw has just made, and there are definitely some interesting draw out there in terms of the opening round. But one of the matchup is Orlando City versus Calgary FC. Now, obviously, Calgary FC does have a problem with playing in their first game against Orlando City, because yeah, if you know anything about Calgary in the winter and especially in February, it is really cold, and that there's just no way you can basically play in the stadium that Calgary FC has played, which is a really nice stadium. I mean, ATCO Field, I think that's the name of the stadium. It is definitely a very nice stadium. Well, the problem is that they mentioned that if it was like the pitch is not going to be suitable because in the winter, because it's just so cold in Calgary, and in general it's mostly really cold up there in Canada in the winter. Yeah, there's going to be permanent frost on the pitch, and you just cannot play on a permanent frost kind of pitch. So instead, it seems like they might relocate their game to where Pacific FC play. And that again, it's kind of a shame too, because this is a big opportunity for all those Calgary FC fans able to watch an MLS team. I remember when Calgary FC play against teams like Montreal and Vancouver in the Canadian Championship. They draw some really good crowd. Like those games were just completely sold out, and that I thought this could have been the case again when they get a chance to face an MLS team like Orlando City. But unfortunately, it doesn't seem like it's going to be taking place their home ground. And again, that's kind of the problem with the Concacaf Champions Cup happening so early in the season, because well, that might not be an issue, at least with a lot of teams in Central America, and especially in Mexico, or even in the part of the U.S. that are not like in the Midwest or in the Northeast. It is definitely a problem in Canada, where you simply just cannot play a game in February in a really cold environment, like in the city like Calgary. In the first leg because of it. Although if Calgary FC would want to do so, and if only Concacaf can approve it, that would be a very interesting test to see Orlando City, a team that comes from warm weather, has to go in the frozen tundra known as Calgary to play a February Concacaf Champions Cup game. I mean, that is the most peak Concacaf kind of moment, if that of course could happen, but it seems like it's not going to happen because CONCACAF just said that the pitch in the home field that they're playing is just not suitable to host a CONCACAF Champions Cup game. And then Adrian Healy, one of my favorite commentator in MLS, well, he announced on Twitter that he's not going to be returning next season as the play-by-play commentator. Now, the way that he basically released his statement on Twitter of him not returning to MLS as a play-by-play commentator is a little bit suspect. And he of course said that he's very thankful being the play-by-play commentator. But then one thing that made it very suspect is the fact that he says you deserve a lot better. And instantly when I've heard that, you can make some speculation what that means, but whenever someone says that, it probably means that they were forced out. And I don't know what exactly Adrian Healy did to for Apple TV or even MLS to force him out. There's some rumors surrounding maybe he said something that MLS did not appreciate, and that's why he of course was forced out. But either way, very sad to see that has happened again. Adrian Healy is one of my favorite play-by-play commentator, and that it's gonna be be sad to see him, of course, not gonna be the play-by-play commentator next season on Apple TV, and that we have in terms of Apple TV commentators, which I should do a video in terms of ranking them for some of the best one to some of the worst one that I've heard for this season. Adrian Healy is definitely right near the top of the list as one of my favorite play-by-play commentator. And again, it sucks the fact that he's not going to return next season. And then lastly, Minnesota United is looking to add a 90-foot loon sculpture in front of Allianz Field. And honestly, I'm all for it. I'm all for Minnesota decided to add a loon sculpture in front of the stadium. I mean, recently they just changed their state emblem, and it has the loons in there. And by the way, speaking of the loon, I don't know if you have seen this in the background, but I actually do have a loon plushie toy right here. I call him Ludwig, and I actually do bring him to Minnesota United game, though recently I haven't been able to do so, and mostly is because it feels like every time when I bring her with me at games, Minnesota United always tends up to lose. So maybe this loon was a kind of a bad luck charm rather than a good luck charm. But yeah, I would absolutely don't mind if this little guy would be in front of Allianz Field, because again, that's the most Minnesota thing they could do, and I wish other teams does that. I wish other team that especially have animal kind of in their team should have a sculpture like that. I mean, an example of that is I wish Orlando City can put a lion right in front of Exploria Stadium, because on their logo it literally has a lion, and their nickname is the Lions. So yeah, very cool to see if Minnesota United is going to do. And there's no doubt I'm going to take a picture of that if they do decided to add that as a sculpture the next time I go to Allianz Field. But there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of me doing this news of the week episode. Again, it's a bit of a long one because I spent almost a third of this video talking about this. I probably should have just separate this in a separate video, because it's such a hotly talk about MLS team not participating in the US Open Cup. But until then, let me know in the comments below what do you think of these news. And as always, if there's any news I didn't mention here on the board, let me know in the comments below. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.